Okay, can I talk about it now? Oh my goodness, what is good, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy HMK once again, and now we're going to talk about the ending of Final Fantasy XVI along with theories when it comes to the ending, because man, there is a big ambiguous when it comes to that game. And I'm telling you, I've only played that game for 30 hours and 40 hours and 50 hours and 60 hours and 70 hours, and I've cried a total of 70 hours. That game is sad, and I loved it, and I loved every second of it. But let's get right into it now. Of course, huge spoilers if you haven't beaten Final Fantasy 16 yet. Please do. Oh my goodness. So, in the climax of the game, we have to go defeat Ultima, who is voiced by the same voice actor as Zed from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 at Origin. Yeah. So Clive, Clive, Joshua, I keep calling him Phoenix because Dion keeps calling him Phoenix. All right, so Clive, Joshua, and Dion, no Torgal, no Jill, no Gav. We all go to Origin in order for the final battle against Ultima. Now, Dion dies. That hurt. That really hurt. Then we go to face Ultima. It's just Clive and Joshua, the Rosfield brothers, and then Joshua dies. And can I say right now that Ben Starr, as an actor for Clive Rosfield, is immaculate, right? I felt every palpable sense of emotion coming from this man throughout the entirety of the game, all right? The way he was just like ugly bawling over the death of his brother that he had to witness again. It's just, no. I'm sorry, that had me going. That legit had me going. And I man, that's heartbreaking. So Joshua dies. As it turns out, there is not one Ultima. If you've been paying attention throughout the game, there is multiple Ultimas, all different parts of Ultima to come together as Ultima. That were all locked. That turns out they were all locked in the Mother Crystals, which we've been destroying this whole time to unleash each Ultima. But Joshua was able to contain one of the Ultimas, in which the first Mother Crystal that we destroyed was said in the very beginning of the game. And Ultima needed that Ultima back, which was horrible. And Joshua died from that. And Ultima is ready to put together their plan in order to use Clive, Mythos, not Logos, Mythos, that becomes Logos, whatever, to put together the ultimate vessel in order to create the spell, in order to do the spell, in order to have a body strong enough to conduct the spell that will, reinvigorate the world, that will allow these higher life forms to live in peace with magic and destroy the human race, because the human race was literally just there to birth the perfect vessel, and once their job is done, their job is done. Yeah, so when people say this isn't Final Fantasy, it's very Final Fantasy. So we fight against Ultima in one of the... Wow, that boss segment was just amazing. It's actually become one of my favorite boss segments ever, right? And then our friends is our power, and that the only fantasy Ultima sees is theirs, and that we are its final witness, and rah. We defeat Ultima after an amazing boss fight, in which, everyone tells Clive to go on, and we in turn take Ultima's power, like we'll be taking all of the icons' power, right? Now here is where the theories start flowing, because at this point we go back to the room where, Joshua died, and he's gutted open because Ultima had to be burst out from his chest. Clive heals Joshua's wounds, right? Now, remember that, okay? And then uses Ultima's power to destroy Origin, the last Mother Crystal, thereby removing magic from the world. But by doing so, he was able to wash up on a beach, because I was really hoping he didn't die. Clive, please don't die. Please don't die. You gotta go back to jail. Please don't die, right? And we see Clive at a beach, but petrification began on his arm, right? And he can't use magic anymore because he's removed magic from the world. right? And then it's very ambiguous, like, oh, did Clive die then and there? Was how fast was the petrification? Did he become stone? Did he never reunite with Jill? You know, the star went out, Jill was crying, Torgal was howling at the moon, Gav kind of like knew what was going on and he started crying too. Man, homies, right? And then at the end of the game, we see a family start a fire, like these two boys are playing with their little doggo, right? But then apparently it's like, oh, the last one there has to start the fire to get, supper ready. So then this kid is putting together a fire naturally with stones and stuff like, flints. And then he's like, oh, if I had an icon or magic, I'd be able to do this. And the mother is like, oh, you're reading that tale again? You're like, icons don't exist, magic doesn't exist, like you should stop reading books, you read too much manga, go outside, touch grass, right? Which he does. And then their little dog is named Bahamut, which is hilarious. But then you see a book on the desk saying Final Fantasy. The book is named Final Fantasy, written by Joshua Rosford. So where do I begin? Joshua's alive? Oh, because Clive healed his body and Clive died? No. Y'all need to play the side quest, because the side quests, although their structure leaves a bit to be desired, the context given in these side quests tell the tale of what went down with the ending, right? Despite of how ambiguous it was supposed to look. All right, Joshua is dead. Unfortunately, he's dead. He did not come back to life, despite how powerful Ultima's power would be, because in the side quest, it's constantly stated that the power of the Phoenix, right, and that this is the power of the Phoenix that Clive used. Oh, but it was the power of the Phoenix that was empowered by Ultima. If Ultima was able to do that, Ultima was able to use multiple iconic powers and whatnot. If he had the power to revive, he would have been reviving an army and all these things in order to throw out Clive and everyone who was coming out. So Ultima does not have the power to revive people from the dead, right? Phoenix does not have the power to revive people from the dead, as it is specifically stated in a side quest that the Phoenix power has the power to mend the flesh, but not the spirit, not the soul. That which is, what is constantly talked about in media when it comes to fantasy as the life-giving essence of a person, right? Kingdom Hearts, Bleach, yeah, you get the idea, right? So, I mean, of course, if I see my brother who recently died and is cut open like a sardine, of course I would want to, heal him. And then remember, Joshua's body was right there when Clive decided to bring the whole thing down. I don't think Joshua's body survived all that. But I mean, as a courtesy, I want to assume that he healed his brother's wounds to have the last time he sees his brother in a pristine sense, right? I would have done the same, right? If that happened between me and my brother, right? So, with that being said, Clive did survive that whole ordeal, and the petrification probably did affect him, but he lived after that. He more than likely was able to find Jill, start a family, and then sit down and write a book. And there's two big reasons for that. One, which is the blatant one that we should all know, Clive is no stranger to taking on names. He took on Sid's name when Sid passed away, and he probably took on Joshua's name as a pen name after he passed away in order to write this book as a different alias and to give homage to his fallen, deceased late brother, right? And the other big thing to note is that there is a very specific side quest that tells this tale, which on the desk, which I want to assume is Clive's desk, and then oh, is that Lady Jill, an older Jill, and that's their kids. On the desk, you see a quill, right? A quill, obviously, if you're gonna have a desk, you have to wear a quill, but that really spoke to me because in a cutscene in a side quest between Clive and Harpocrates, Harpocrates specifically states, as someone who is a lore master of, Clive's entourage, states that one day I hope that, Harpocrates gave Clive his quill specifically and said, one day I hope you will put down the sword and pick up that quill, right? And Clive responded saying, I will have plenty to write about. So, using Harpocrates' quill and the tutelage and advice from Hippocrates, and using Joshua as a pen name, Clive is the one who wrote Final Fantasy, that was able to account everything that we see in the game, because everything we see in the game is from Clive's point of view. We only get so much context from Joshua's point of view, right? So that is why Clive survived, wrote Final Fantasy under Joshua's name, Hippocrates' Quill, and there is the ending and theories explained when it comes to Final Fantasy XVI. That game is so good, and that game is so heartbreaking. So let me know what you think about the ending, the explanation, the theories, and more. Until the next video, this has been your boy HMK, and I'll check you guys later.